They beat Bumpy Johnson's wife in front of him. Cotton Club, 1946. Blood on her lip. 200 watched. He didn't blink. Just lit a cigarette. Left. 48 hours later, 5 men clawed locked doors. Fingernails torn to bone. Air running out. No shots fired. How did silence kill louder than bullets? February 1946. The Lenox Lounge, 10 p.m. Wood panels soaked in 30 years of whiskey. Smoke hung from the ceiling like fog that forgot how to leave. Jazz played low, saxophone bleeding through speakers. Sound moved through your chest before it reached your ears. Bumpy Johnson wasn't there yet. Didn't need to be. His table stayed empty. Corner booth. Back to the wall. Clear view of both doors. Nobody sat there. Not regulars. Not tourists. Not cops who knew better. The table waited. Like a throne waits. Like death waits. Voices dropped when people mentioned his name. Not whispers. Just lower. Respectful. The kind of respect that comes from understanding consequences. From watching what happens to people who forget the rules. Mamie Johnson sat 3 tables away. Elegant. Calm. Drinking coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. She didn't look at the empty table. Didn't need to. Her presence marked territory better than any sign. Better than any gun. When Bumpy's wife showed up alone, Harlem understood. Business was being conducted. Silently, invisibly. Illinois Gordon stood near the bar, counting, always counting. Not money, time, rhythm. Who arrived when, who left early, who stayed too long. Gordon didn't carry a gun, didn't need one. His weapon was information, knowing who owed what, who promised when, who broke their word and needed reminding. A precinct cop sat in the back. Detective Murphy. 15 years in Harlem. Knew every corner, every player. Every crime that would never see a courtroom. He drank coffee. Watched. Said nothing. Murphy understood the real rule: you survive by being invisible. By seeing everything and reporting nothing. The department wanted arrests. Harlem wanted order. Murphy chose survival. The door opened. Cold air rushed in. Bumpy walked through like he owned the oxygen. Didn't rush. Didn't scan the room. Just moved. Steady. Inevitable. People shifted without knowing why. Made space. Created paths. Animal instinct, recognizing predator. He sat at his table. Didn't order. The drink appeared. Whiskey. 2 fingers. No ice. Gordon approached. Leaned in. Whispered numbers. Bumpy nodded once. Gordon left. 30 seconds. Transaction complete. This was power. Not loud, not violent, just present, absolute. The kind that doesn't announce itself because everyone already knows. You don't question gravity. You don't challenge Bumpy Johnson. A new face entered. Young, mid-20s. Sharp suit. Too sharp. Trying too hard. He scanned the room. Found Bumpy. Smiled. Walked over. Mistake number 1. Mr. Johnson, heard a lot about you. Confident. Stupid confidence. The kind that comes from not knowing enough to be afraid. Bumpy looked up. Didn't speak. Just looked. Eyes flat. Empty, like staring into a well that goes down forever. The kid kept talking. Mistake number 2. Heard you're the man to see about moving product. I got connections. Chicago. Good money. We should talk. Silence. The jazz kept playing. People kept drinking. But the air changed. Thicker. Colder. Everyone felt it. Everyone except the kid who couldn't read rooms. Bumpy took a sip. Set the glass down. Precise. Controlled. You heard wrong. The kid laughed, nervous, trying to recover. Come on, everyone knows you run. Gordon appeared, hand on the kid's shoulder. Time to leave. I'm talking to. Time to leave. Gordon's voice dropped. No threat. Just fact. Like saying the sky is blue. Like saying you're leaving now or leaving in pieces. The kid looked at Bumpy. Bumpy looked at his drink. Conversation over. The kid left, walking fast, not running, but close. Murphy watched from the back. Made no notes. Saw nothing. Would remember everything. Mamie stood, walked to Bumpy's table, sat across from him. They didn't speak. Didn't need to. She was the center, the axis, the one piece in this machine that couldn't be replaced. Bumpy built empires. Mamie gave him a reason to keep them standing. An hour later, word reached the Lennox. Someone was talking, some new crew from the Bronx. Italian connections. Thought they could push into Harlem. Thought Bumpy was old, slow, weak. They heard he had one weakness, one soft spot. His wife. Gordon delivered the message, whispered in Bumpy's ear. Bumpy's face didn't change, didn't tense, didn't harden. Just stayed flat, empty. The most dangerous expression a man can wear. He stood, buttoned his coat, walked to the door. Mamie followed. They left together. The table stayed empty. The whiskey stayed half-finished. The room stayed quiet. People looked at each other, said nothing. But they knew. Everyone knew. Someone had made a mistake. A fatal one. The kind of mistake that gets corrected quietly, permanently. Detective Murphy finished his coffee, left exact change, walked out. He would write no report, see no crime, hear no screams. He had a wife, kids, pension coming. Survival meant knowing when to look away. Power isn't what you have, it's what people stop testing, what they accept without challenge, what becomes natural, inevitable, like gravity, like death, like the understanding that in Harlem certain rules exist, not written, not spoken, just understood. And the first rule, you don't touch Bumpy Johnson. Ever, for any reason, at any price. Someone was about to learn that lesson, the expensive way, the permanent way, the way that makes everyone else remember without needing to be told twice. Harlem adjusted its breathing, waited, watched, understood that something was coming, something cold, something calculated, something that would remind everyone why Bumpy Johnson's table stayed empty until he arrived. Because respect isn't demanded. It's measured. In silence, in space, in the way people move when you enter a room, and the way they stop breathing when you leave. The Cotton Club. Friday night, March 1st, tables packed, music loud, laughter louder, champagne flowing, money changing hands. Harlem at its brightest, its loudest, its most dangerous. Mamie sat at a center table, red dress, pearls, composed. Bumpy next to her. Black suit, white shirt, tie perfectly straight. They looked like royalty, felt like warning. Spoons touched coffee cups, sound like hammering nails into coffins. Mamie set her napkin down, folded, precise. Bumpy checked his watch. Once. Didn't speak. Didn't need to. The usual crowd laughed, drank, pretended everything was normal. But the laughter sounded wrong, forced. Like actors who forgot their lines but kept performing anyway. A man approached. Mid-30s, expensive suit, Bronx accent, Italian crew, connected, protected. Thought he was untouchable. Wrong. He walked past Mamie's chair, stumbled, not drunk, deliberate. His hand brushed her shoulder, lingered. Too long, too familiar. Sorry, sweetheart. Grinning, testing, pushing boundaries. Seeing what Bumpy would do, what he could get away with. The room froze. Music kept playing. People kept moving. But everything else stopped. Time, breath, heartbeats. Mamie looked at Bumpy. Bumpy looked at his coffee. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't acknowledge the man existed. The man laughed. Louder now, encouraged by silence. Thinking silence meant weakness. Thinking he'd found the crack in Bumpy's armor. Didn't mean nothing, just clumsy tonight. Gordon appeared from nowhere, whispered to the man, too quiet to hear. The man's smile cracked, flickered. Gordon whispered again, Longer this time, more detailed. The man stepped back, colors draining from his face. He looked at Bumpy. Bumpy was lighting a cigarette. Slow, methodical, like the man didn't exist, like the entire incident was beneath notice. The man left. Walking, not running, but close. Very close. The room exhaled. Music got louder. Laughter resumed. But wrong. Everyone knew. Everyone felt it. Something had shifted. Changed. A line had been crossed. Payment was coming due. Bumpy stood, buttoned his coat, helped Mamie with her chair. They walked out together. Slow. Calm, like leaving church after Sunday service. Nothing rushed. Nothing angry. Just routine. Behind them, the club manager locked the front doors. Back doors, kitchen doors, one by one. Click, click, click. No one else was leaving. Not yet. Not until this resolved. An old man in the corner nodded. He understood. Been in Harlem 40 years. Seen this before. When Bumpy didn't explode, that's when you should worry. When he stayed calm, that's when people disappeared. The man who touched Mamie sat in his car, 2 blocks away, hands shaking on the steering wheel, trying to start the engine, keys rattling, won't turn, won't catch. His friend in the passenger seat. We should go, now, tonight, leave the city. He didn't do nothing, didn't even look at me. We're fine. That's what they said about Tommy Rizzo. That's what they said about the Marshall brothers. That's what everyone says right before they vanish. The engine caught. Finally. They drove. Fast. Toward the Bronx, toward safety. Toward the mistaken belief that distance mattered, that geography could save them. It couldn't. Back at the Cotton Club, Detective Murphy stood in the shadows, watching, waiting, knowing. He'd write no report, make no arrests, see no crimes. He'd learned long ago in Harlem, justice had its own courts, its own judges, its own executioners. And Bumpy Johnson was all 3. Gordon stood next to him, didn't speak, just stood. Breathing, thinking, calculating. Murphy finally broke silence. How long? 48 hours, maybe less. Depends how much the boss wants them to think about it first. You don't know what he'll do. I know exactly what he'll do. Question is how long he makes them wait before he does it. Murphy nodded. Understood. The waiting was part of the punishment, the knowing, the dread building in your chest, the looking over your shoulder, the jumping at every sound, the realization settling in like cold water you're marked, tagged, scheduled for removal. And there's nothing you can do but wait. That's power, real power, not the bullet. The anticipation of the bullet, not the locked room. The knowledge the locked room is coming. Not death. The mathematical certainty of death. Mamie understood before anyone, sitting in the car outside the Cotton Club. Bumpy driving, silent, focused. She looked at him. This isn't about me. No, it's about the rule. Yes, they have to learn. They have to disappear. She nodded, adjusted her pearls, checked her makeup in the mirror. Composed. Calm. She'd seen this before. Would see it again. This was the cost of being queen, of being the line nobody crossed, of being protected so thoroughly that protection itself became weapon. They drove home, parked, walked inside. Bumpy made 2 phone calls. Short. Precise. Said 6 words total. Hung up. The machinery was in motion. Gears turning, wheels rolling, clock ticking down. 48 hours, maybe less. 2 men who thought they could test Bumpy Johnson and walk away breathing. Wrong. Anger is what weak men use to prove strength. Strong men use calendars, schedules, plans, mathematics. They turn rage into logistics, emotion into execution, insult into lesson. And the lesson was simple, clear, permanent. You don't touch Mamie Johnson, ever, even accidentally, even playfully, even to test. Because touching her means you misunderstood power, misread the room, miscalculated the cost. And miscalculation in Bumpy's Harlem doesn't get second chances. It gets erased, removed, deleted from existence so completely that people forget you were ever there. 48 hours. The clock started. Ticking, inevitable, like gravity, like death, like the understanding that some rules exist beyond enforcement, beyond threats, beyond violence. They exist in silence, in certainty, in the absolute knowledge that crossing them costs everything, not just your life, your existence, the memory you ever lived. When Bumpy didn't react, everyone knew. The worst thing wasn't coming. It was already here. Moving, hunting, calculating, finding the perfect moment, the perfect place, the perfect method. And in 48 hours, 2 men would learn what everyone in Harlem already knew. Respect isn't given, it's measured, in distance, in deference, in the space people maintain around certain names, certain faces, certain women who sit at center tables wearing red dresses and pearls. The Cotton Club emptied. Slowly. People left, walking carefully, looking over shoulders, wondering if they'd said something wrong, done something stupid, crossed some invisible line they didn't see. Most hadn't. Most were safe. Most would wake up tomorrow still breathing. But 2 men wouldn't. 2 men who thought touching Mamie Johnson was worth the risk, worth the test, worth seeing what the legendary Bumpy Johnson would do when pushed. They were about to find out, and the answer would echo through Harlem for decades. Cold, calculated, permanent. The Alhambra Ballroom, Saturday afternoon. Lunch crowd. Businessmen. Politicians, numbers runners, police captains. Everyone who mattered in Harlem sat at tables eating expensive food and conducting cheap deals. Bumpy sat alone. Corner table, back to the wall. Steak, rare, potatoes, coffee, black. The same meal every Saturday. Routine. Predictable. Comfortable. A reporter sat 3 tables away. James Baldwin, young, observant, writing about Harlem for a magazine that wouldn't print half of what he saw. But he watched, remembered, took mental notes that would become stories decades later. The 2 men from Friday night entered, the ones who touched Mamie, walked to Bumpy's table, trying to apologize, trying to make it right, trying to fix what couldn't be fixed. Mistake. The first man spoke. Mr. Johnson, about last night. It was an accident. I had too much to drink. Didn't mean no disrespect to your wife. Bumpy cut his steak. Precise, clean. Didn't look up. Sit down. They sat, relieved, thinking maybe this could be resolved. Maybe words could undo actions. Maybe Bumpy was reasonable, forgiving, wrong. Bumpy chewed, swallowed, sipped coffee, still hadn't looked at them. You know what I do for a living. You run numbers, protection. You keep Harlem organized. Wrong. Bumpy set his fork down, finally looked up, eyes flat, dead. I teach lessons, permanent lessons, the kind people remember without needing to be told twice. The second man tried. We came to apologize, make it right. We'll leave Harlem, never come back, whatever you want. What I want is for you to finish your meal, then walk out that door. Go wherever you think is safe. Spend the next 48 hours however you want. Say goodbye to people. Make peace with whatever God you pray to, because Monday morning you won't be breathing anymore. Silence. The restaurant kept operating. Forks scraped plates. Conversations hummed. Jazz played low. But at that table sound died, suffocated by certainty. The first man's voice cracked. You're going to kill us over an accident over nothing. Bumpy resumed eating, cut, chewed. I'm not going to kill you. I already killed you. Friday night, when you touched my wife. You died then. Your bodies just haven't figured it out yet, but they will. 48 hours. Enjoy them. He waved his hand. Dismissal. Gordon appeared, escorted them out. They walked on legs that barely functioned. Survival instinct fighting against the knowledge that survival was no longer possible. Baldwin watched from his table. Didn't write. Couldn't. His hands were shaking. He'd just witnessed something textbooks couldn't teach, something sociology couldn't explain. Raw power, not violent, not loud, just absolute, inevitable, like watching gravity work, like watching death collect debts. Bumpy finished his steak, ordered dessert, apple pie, ice cream, ate slowly, savoring, like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just sentenced 2 men to death while eating lunch, like this was routine, normal. Tuesday afternoon in Harlem. That was the terrifying part. Not the threat. The normalcy afterward. The way Bumpy adjusted his tie. Signaled for more coffee. Chatted with the waiter about weather, about baseball, about nothing important. Baldwin finally understood. Violence in Harlem wasn't explosion. It was procedure, administration, management. Bumpy didn't lose control. He applied control. Surgically. Precisely. With the same calm he used to order dessert. The 2 men ran, called everyone they knew, begged for help, offered money, information, anything. But nobody answered, nobody helped. Nobody wanted to be next. By Sunday morning they'd left New York, drove to Philadelphia, thought distance meant safety, thought geography could outrun reputation, thought Bumpy's reach ended at city limits. Wrong. Monday morning, 7 a.m. Philadelphia police found 2 bodies, locked warehouse, no wounds, no violence, just dead. Medical examiner called it suffocation, no explanation how, no evidence why. Just 2 men who stopped breathing in a locked room with 12 hours of air that ran out exactly when it was supposed to. News reached Harlem by noon. Word spread. Quietly. No announcements, no celebrations. Just understanding. Confirmation. The lesson had been taught. Again. Like it had been taught before. Like it would be taught again. Bumpy ate lunch at the Alhambra. Same table, same meal. Steak. Rare, potatoes, coffee, black. Routine, predictable, comfortable. Baldwin was there, watching. Understanding more than he wanted to. Understanding that Harlem operated under rules that couldn't be written, couldn't be taught, could only be learned by watching. By surviving. By knowing when to look away. When Bumpy finished, he paid. Tipped well. Thanked the waiter. Walked out into Harlem's sun. Another Saturday. Another lesson. Another 2 people who forgot that certain women in certain red dresses at certain tables were untouchable. Not because of threats, because of mathematics. Because of the cold calculation that touching Bumpy Johnson cost 2 lives. Every time, without exception, without mercy. When violence becomes routine, what remains is administration, management, the bureaucracy of power, death on a schedule. Payment collected with the regularity of rent. That's what Baldwin couldn't write. What readers wouldn't believe. What history would sanitize and simplify. That power in Harlem wasn't gangsters shooting in alleys. It was Bumpy Johnson eating steak while 2 men's clocks ticked down to 0. Cold. Calculated. Permanent. The way he adjusted his napkin after sentencing them. The way he smiled at the waiter. The way he walked out into sunlight like nothing had happened. Because for him, nothing had. Just another transaction. Another lesson. Another reminder that the rules existed for reasons people kept forgetting. Until they didn't. Until they remembered. Until the memory became permanent. Written in bodies, in locked rooms, in the absolute certainty that certain lines existed. And crossing them didn't bring war, didn't bring drama, didn't bring anything except silence, and the understanding that you'd already died. Your body just needed 48 hours to figure it out. Charleston, South Carolina, 1906. Heat that made breathing feel like drowning. Dust that settled in your lungs and never left. Silence that came before violence. The kind of silence that meant white boots were coming, white hands were reaching, white rage was looking for targets. Ellsworth Johnson was 10 years old. Already knew the rules. Eyes down. Voice quiet. Move aside when white folks pass. Survive by being invisible, by swallowing rage, by pretending dignity didn't matter. But one afternoon he forgot. Looked up, met a white man's eyes. Didn't look away fast enough. 3 seconds. That's all it took. 3 seconds of eye contact. 3 seconds of refusing to bow. The white man stopped. Boy, you got something to say? Ellsworth's father grabbed his shoulder, hard, pulled him back. No, sir. Boy don't mean nothing. Just young. Don't know better. Then teach him better, before someone else does. They walked away. Fast. Not running. Never run. Running meant guilt, meant fear, meant giving them permission to chase. But inside, Ellsworth's father was terrified. That night he sat his son down. Kitchen table, oil lamp flickering, speaking in whispers even though they were alone. You can't do that, ever. You look at them wrong, they'll kill you. They'll kill me. They'll burn this house with your mama inside. You understand? Ellsworth understood. Hated understanding. Hated that survival meant submission, meant becoming less than human, so white men could feel more than human. 2 weeks later, Willie Johnson disappeared. Ellsworth's older brother, 19 years old, strong, smart, future ahead of him. He'd talked back to a white shopkeeper, argued about being shortchanged, used words like fair and right and respect. They found Willie 3 days later, hanging from a tree, body mutilated, eyes gone, fingers broken, message carved into his chest. Know your place. No trial, no arrest, no investigation. Just a dead black boy and a community that had to pretend not to see. Had to pretend it was justified. Had to pretend Willie somehow deserved what happened to him. Ellsworth's mother packed his bag that night, shaking hands. Silent tears. She'd already lost one son. Wouldn't lose another. You're going to New York. Your aunt in Harlem. You leave tomorrow. Mama. Tomorrow. Before they remember your face. Before they decide one Johnson boy wasn't enough. His father sold their house. Secretly. To a black preacher who understood urgency. Got enough for train tickets. Enough for a new start. Enough to save the son they had left. The train north took 3 days. Ellsworth sat in the colored car. Watched South Carolina disappear. Watched Georgia roll past. Watched the landscape change, but the rules stayed the same. Separate water fountains, separate bathrooms. Separate world that told him every mile you don't belong. You never will. Your life is worth less than the ticket you're holding. He arrived in Harlem with nothing. No money, no connections, no education. Just rage. Cold rage. The kind that doesn't explode. The kind that calculates. Plans. Waits. His aunt lived in a basement apartment. Lenox Avenue. Worked 3 jobs. Still couldn't afford heat. She fed him. Clothed him. Kept him alive, but couldn't protect him from Harlem's streets, from the Italian gangs, the Irish cops, the white landlords who charged triple for apartments worth nothing. Ellsworth learned fast, learned that New York was just Charleston, with taller buildings, different faces, same rules. You were black, therefore less, therefore vulnerable, therefore prey. At 15, he started running numbers. At 16, carrying messages for Stephanie St. Clair. At 17, breaking bones for people who couldn't pay debts. At 18, he'd killed 3 men, not because he wanted to, because not killing them meant dying himself. Each death taught him something. First man, hesitation gets you killed. Second man, mercy is weakness. Third man, if you're going to end someone, do it completely. No witnesses, no loose ends, no second chances for people who know your face. By 20, Ellsworth Johnson had become Bumpy. Nickname from childhood, bump on his head, scar from his father hitting him for looking at white men wrong. The bump stayed. The name stuck. The boy from Charleston became a man who would never bow again. He made one promise. Standing over Willie's grave before he left Charleston. Before the train. Before Harlem. Before everything that made him who he became. Nobody touches mine, ever. I don't care who they are. Don't care what color. Don't care what connections. You touch someone, I protect you, stop breathing. No exceptions. No mercy. No forgiveness. That promise became law. Personal law. The kind that doesn't require courts, doesn't need police, doesn't wait for justice that never comes. Just execution. Clean. Final. Absolute. Mamie understood this better than anyone. She'd grown up in North Carolina. Different state. Same story. Same rage. Same understanding that the system wouldn't protect people like them. Couldn't. Wasn't designed to. When she met Bumpy, she recognized it immediately. The controlled fury, the calculated violence, the absolute refusal to ever be victim again. She didn't fear it. She understood it, because she carried the same thing inside her chest. They married in 1934. Small ceremony, few witnesses, no celebration. Just 2 people who'd survived by being harder than the world that tried to break them. 2 people who understood that family wasn't blood. It was boundary. Line. Territory. The space you defended with your life because nobody else would defend it for you. Willie's death taught Bumpy the most important lesson, the one that shaped everything after, the one that made him different from every other criminal in Harlem. The system will not save you. Police won't help. Courts won't listen. Government won't intervene. You are alone, and being alone means you build your own law, your own justice, your own rules. And you enforce those rules so absolutely, so permanently, so ruthlessly, that nobody ever tests them twice. Cruelty isn't always nature. Sometimes it's nurture, sometimes it's survival, sometimes it's the logical conclusion of living in a world that taught you your life has no value, so you make it valuable. By force, by fear, by the understanding that touching you costs more than anyone can afford to pay. Charleston built Bumpy Johnson. Harlem gave him tools. But Willie's death gave him purpose, gave him the cold mathematics that turned rage into power, grief into structure, pain into the absolute certainty that his people would never hang from trees again. They would die. Everyone dies. But they would die protected, defended, avenged with the kind of precision that makes entire communities remember why crossing certain lines means permanent removal. That was the legacy of Charleston, of Jim Crow, of Willie swinging from a tree with his eyes carved out, not victimhood, not submission, but the opposite, the absolute refusal to ever kneel again, to ever let someone he loved pay the price for his weakness. Bumpy Johnson wasn't born cruel. He was taught cruelty by a world that gave him no other options. And he learned the lesson so completely, so perfectly, so absolutely that he became the teacher, the one who taught Harlem what cruelty really looked like when applied with mathematical precision, cold, permanent, inevitable. Sunday morning, March 3rd. Bumpy's apartment, 409 Edgecombe Avenue. Quiet. Too quiet. No jazz, no traffic noise, no voices from the street. Just silence, the kind that comes before storms, before executions, before the world shifts on its axis. Mamie sat at the kitchen table, coffee untouched, hands folded, composed. She'd been married to Bumpy 12 years, knew his rhythms, his patterns, his moods. This wasn't anger. This was something colder. more dangerous, calculation dressed in calm. Bumpy stood by the window, looking down at Harlem. Sunday morning, people walking to church, pretending they didn't know what was coming, pretending the last 2 days hadn't happened, pretending normal was still possible. He hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, just stood, thinking, planning, running scenarios like chess moves, every possibility, every consequence, every angle. Mamie finally spoke. "You're not angry." "No. You should be. They touched me, disrespected me in front of everyone. You should be furious." Bumpy turned, looked at her, eyes flat, empty. Anger makes mistakes. Anger starts wars that never end. This isn't about anger. This is about structure. Structure. They didn't touch you because they wanted you. They touched you because they thought you were weakness, thought you were the crack in my armor, thought hurting you would hurt me, would make me lose control, would start a war that destroys everything I've built. Mamie stood, walked to him, studied his face. "And are you hurt?" "I'm calculating. Same thing I do when someone steals from the numbers. Same thing I do when someone breaks territory rules. Same thing I do when structure gets challenged. I calculate cost, response, outcome." Gordon knocked, entered without waiting, held a folder. Files, photos, information. Vincent Gigante sent them. The two who touched Mrs. Johnson, Italian crew, Bronx operation, connected to 5 families. This wasn't random. This was a test. Bumpy took the folder, didn't open it. Test of what? Your control, your reach, your willingness to start a war over a woman. Mamie's eyes narrowed. Over a woman. "That's how they see it," Gordon said carefully. "Not as disrespect to the operation, as personal, emotional. They think you'll react with feeling, get sloppy, make mistakes." Bumpy opened the folder. 2 photos, names, addresses, connections, family trees. Every detail Gordon could gather in 48 hours. They're wrong about one thing. This isn't about Mamie. Touching her was just the door they knocked on. The thing they touched was law. He spread the photos on the table, pointed. "These 2? They're symptoms. Gigante is the disease. He sent them, authorized it, wanted to see if I'd overreact, start shooting, bring police attention, federal attention, destroy everything to defend my wife." Mamie sat down, understanding, crystallizing. "But you won't. I'll defend you, absolutely, completely. But not because I'm angry. Because letting someone touch you without consequence means every rule in Harlem becomes negotiable. Every boundary becomes suggestion. Every bit of control I've built over 20 years evaporates. This isn't personal, it's structural." Gordon shifted, uncomfortable. "So what's the play?" Bumpy pulled out a pen, started writing. Names, locations, timeline. "We don't touch the soldiers, we touch the chain of command. Gigante authorized this. His lieutenant delivered the order. His driver transported them. His money funded it. We remove the entire chain. Not violently. Quietly. Make them disappear so completely that Gigante spends the next year wondering if they're dead or if they ran. Either way, his operation falls apart. Uncertainty is worse than bodies." He kept writing. "The 2 who touched Mamie. They're already running. Let them run. Let them think they escaped. Let them believe geography saves them. Then, we close the distance. Lock them somewhere. Let time do the work. No bullets, no witnesses, no evidence, just mathematics. Bodies in rooms with air that runs out on schedule." Mamie watched him write. Watched the emotion drain from the situation. Watched personal insult become logistics problem. "You're protecting the system. I'm protecting everything. You, the numbers, the territory. The understanding that Harlem operates under rules that can't be broken without cost. They think you're my weakness. They're wrong. My weakness is believing the world should have order, that structures should hold, that rules should mean something. He looked up, met her eyes. Touching you proves they don't respect the structure, don't understand it, don't fear it. I can't fix that with anger. I fix it with proof, with demonstrations so clear, so absolute, so permanent that nobody ever misunderstands again. Gordon took the list. This is 11 people, 11 removals. That's a war. No war is loud. War brings attention. This is pruning, cutting dead branches, making the tree healthy again. Nobody will know until it's done. By then it's fact, not war, just change, natural change, the kind that happens when you misread power. The phone rang. Gordon answered, listened, hung up. A gigante wants to talk, wants to negotiate, thinks he can buy his way out. Bumpy smiled. No warmth, no humor, just acknowledgement of stupidity. Tell him no. Tell him his money's worthless. Tell him he bought something he can't return. Tell him the price is fixed, 11 people, non-negotiable. And if he tries to retaliate, it becomes 22. Then 44. Mathematical progression, until he runs out of soldiers or runs out of money or runs out of nerve. Gordon left. Door closed. Silence returned. Mamie poured fresh coffee. Bumpy finally sat. Exhaustion hitting. Not physical. Mental. The weight of making decisions that end lives, that reshape structures, that maintain order through controlled violence. They thought I was your soft spot, Mamie said quietly. You are, just not the way they think. You're the center. The reason the structure exists. Without you, I'm just another criminal. Another thug. Another man using violence because he doesn't know better. You make this mean something. Make it about protecting. Building. Creating space where people like us can exist without bowing. He took her hand. My real soft spot isn't you. It's believing that the world should be different. Should be fair. Should have rules that apply equally. That belief makes me vulnerable. Makes me rigid. Makes me react when structures get challenged. Because if structures can't hold, then Willie died for nothing. Charleston taught me nothing, and everything I've built is just violence dressed up as purpose. Mamie squeezed his hand. It is purpose. You turned rage into structure, chaos into order, made Harlem safe for people who'd never be safe anywhere else. That matters. It matters if I can maintain it, if I can prove that touching you costs everything, if I can make 11 people disappear so cleanly that Gigante learns the lesson. If I fail, then you become target, and next time they won't stop at touching. He stood, buttoned his jacket. I need to go. Things to arrange. People to move. 48 hours until this starts, until structure gets restored, until everyone remembers why certain women at certain tables are untouchable. Bumpy. He stopped. I understand. What you're doing. Why you're doing it. Just don't lose yourself in the mathematics. Remember, some of this is still about us. Still about love. Still about the boy from Charleston who promised his brother's grave that nobody would touch his people again. He nodded. Once. Left. Door closing like a vault. Sealed. Final. Irreversible. Mamie sat alone, understanding more than she wanted, understanding that she wasn't Bumpy's weakness. She was his reason, his purpose, his proof that building something better was possible, and defending her meant defending that possibility, that hope, that belief that black folks could have territory, could have power, could have rules that mattered, even if maintaining those rules required bodies, required locked rooms, required the cold mathematics of making 11 people stop breathing so thousands could breathe easier. The weakest point in any structure isn't the foundation. It's the belief that the structure should exist at all. And Bumpy Johnson's greatest vulnerability wasn't love. It was faith. Faith that order mattered, that rules mattered, that protecting his people justified whatever he had to do to keep them protected, and faith like that challenged publicly required proof. Permanent proof, the kind written in bodies, in disappearances, in the absolute certainty that some lines couldn't be crossed without paying prices that made death look merciful. Cold, calculated, inevitable. Monday night. Rain. Light. Cold. Harlem streets slick, reflective. City lights doubled in wet pavement, cars rolling slow, tires hissing against asphalt, sound like snakes sliding through grass. Harlem wasn't loud. Harlem was waiting. Buildings held their breath, windows dark, alleys empty. The kind of quiet that comes before violence, before change, before the world rearranges itself and pretends it was always that way. Tommy Martinez stumbled into the safe house. Bronx. 3 a.m. Eyes red. Hadn't slept in 48 hours, bringing news nobody wanted to hear. They cut the money, all of it, every drop, policy banks, numbers runners, collectors. Everything we had flowing dried up overnight. Vincent Gigante sat in shadow, cigar smoke rising, forming shapes, dissolving. How Bumpy he didn't threaten, didn't fight, just redirected. Told everyone the payments go through him now, temporary measure, protection. Anyone who deals with us deals with consequences, permanent consequences. Nobody argued, nobody refused. They just switched. Gigante's jaw tightened. 48 hours. He dismantled 18 months of work in 48 hours. It gets worse. He's buying out our protection contracts, offering double, triple, whatever it takes. The restaurants, the shops, the brothels, everyone we had locked down, he's making them better offers, and they're taking them because they're not afraid of us anymore. They're afraid of him. The phone rang. Gigante didn't answer. Let it ring. 15 times. 20. Finally stopped. Started again. He picked up. What? Silence on the other end. Then breathing. Slow. Steady. Patient. Then a voice. Calm. Empty. You have 24 hours to leave Harlem. Pull your people. Close your operations. Walk away. Or what happened to your money happens to your men. One by one. Quietly. Permanently. Your choice. Click. Dial tone. Dead air. Gigante threw the phone. Shattered against the wall. Plastic shrapnel. Wires dangling like veins. He's bluffing. He can't touch us. We're connected. 5 families. Commission backing. He's one man. One territory. He can't win this. Martinez said nothing, just looked at the floor. Knew better. Knew Bumpy wasn't bluffing. Knew the money disappearing was step 1. Knew step 2 was coming. Knew that by the end of the week people would start vanishing. Not violently. Just gone. Erased, like they never existed. 12 hours later, step 2 arrived. 3 of Gigante's men didn't report for work. Phones rang. No answer. Apartments checked. Empty. Cars still parked. Clothes still in closets. Just gone. Like they'd stepped out for cigarettes and forgot to come back. By Tuesday afternoon, it was 6 men. By Tuesday night, 9. No bodies, no witnesses, no evidence, just absence. Void. The space where people used to be. Detective Murphy walked through Harlem, notepad closed, pen capped, seeing everything, recording nothing. He'd been here before, knew this pattern, knew how it ended, knew that trying to stop it meant becoming part of it, meant joining the list of people who disappeared for asking wrong questions. He stopped in a diner, ordered coffee, sat next to an old man who'd lived in Harlem 60 years. You seeing what I'm seeing? The old man didn't look up. I'm not seeing nothing, haven't seen nothing in years. Survival skill. Highly recommend it. People are vanishing. People always vanishing. Some come back. Some don't. Not my business. Not your business. Not anyone's business except the people doing the vanishing and the people getting vanished. Murphy sipped coffee. Bitter, cold. And if I tried to stop it, then you'd be the 10th missing person, and whoever replaced you would learn the same lesson you about to learn. Harlem has laws. They're not written, they're not official, but they're enforced more reliably than any law you carry a badge for. Fight them, you lose. Ignore them, you survive. Murphy left money on the counter, walked out, back to the precinct, filed no report, made no arrests, saw no crimes. Just another day, another week, another situation that would resolve itself without his intervention, because intervention meant choosing sides, and choosing wrong side meant joining the vanished. Wednesday morning, a witness appeared. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong eyes, saw too much. Jenny Rodriguez, waitress, working late shift, saw 4 men escort someone into a building, 3 blocks from where she worked. Saw the person didn't want to go. Saw the door close. Heard nothing after. She told her boyfriend. Her boyfriend told his cousin. His cousin told the wrong person. By Wednesday night, Jenny's name reached Bumpy. Reached Gordon. Reached the people managing the operation. Gordon brought it to Bumpy. We have a witness. Saw one of the pickups. Hasn't gone to police yet. But she's talking. To friends, family. Eventually it reaches Murphy. Eventually it becomes problem. Bumpy sat in his office. Ledger open, numbers running, money flowing, territory expanding, all the things that mattered. All the things that required clean operations. No witnesses, no loose ends, no mistakes. Where is she? Home, Washington Heights, waitress, 23. No criminal record, no connections, just wrong place, wrong time. Bumpy closed the ledger. Options. Standard, removal, clean, quiet. By Friday, she's another missing person. Problem solved. Silence. Bumpy stared at the wall. Calculating. Woman who saw something. Woman who talked about it. Woman who could unravel everything with one statement to one detective who actually cared. Standard procedure, remove the threat, eliminate the variable, maintain the structure, but Jenny Rodriguez wasn't gigante. Wasn't Italian crew, wasn't criminal, wasn't threat. Just witness. Wrong place, wrong time, speaking truth about things she shouldn't have seen. Removing her maintained secrecy. But it meant killing innocent, meant crossing line from structure to tyranny. Meant becoming the thing he fought against, the thing that killed Willie, the thing that made Charleston hell, the thing that made Harlem necessary. Leave her, Bumpy said finally. Gordon froze. Boss, leave her. She talks, we adapt, we adjust. We deal with consequences without creating new ones. You start killing witnesses who aren't part of the game, you're not maintaining structure, you're destroying it. You're proving that power is just violence, just fear, just death. And if that's all it is, then what's the point? Murphy will find out, will investigate, will bring attention. Let him. Murphy knows how Harlem works, knows when to push and when to walk away. He'll investigate, file paperwork, close cases unsolved, same as always. But if we kill Jenny Rodriguez, we're not protecting structure. We're protecting ourselves. There's difference, and difference matters. Gordon left, unconvinced, but obedient. Understanding that Bumpy's rules included rules about rules, lines that couldn't be crossed even to protect lines. The operation continued. Gigante's men kept disappearing. Money kept flowing away from him. Territory kept shrinking. By Thursday, he'd lost 14 people. By Friday, 18. All non-violent, all clean, all permanent. Jenny Rodriguez stayed alive, kept working, kept talking, told her story to anyone who'd listen. Eventually reached Murphy. Murphy investigated, found nothing, closed the case, marked unsolved, moved on. Because some things in Harlem were unsolvable, not because evidence didn't exist. Because solving them required challenging structure, and structure, when properly maintained, was more powerful than any investigation. more permanent than any arrest, more absolute than any law written on paper. Power isn't the ability to hit hardest. It's the ability to not hit, to show restraint, to choose mercy even when violence is easier, because violence maintains control. But restraint builds legitimacy, and legitimacy lasts longer than fear ever could. Bumpy Johnson could have killed Jenny Rodriguez, could have maintained perfect secrecy, could have protected himself absolutely. But doing so would have proven his enemies right, would have proven he was just another criminal, another thug, another man using violence because he had no other tools. Instead, he proved something else. That structure had rules, that rules had meaning, that protecting Harlem meant protecting everyone in it, even witnesses, even threats, even people who could destroy everything with one statement to one detective. Because real power isn't killing everyone who challenges you. It's building something strong enough that challenges don't matter, that witnesses don't matter, that even the truth can't tear down what you've built. Cold, calculated, legitimate. Thursday morning, the Lenox Lounge, 9 a.m. Early for a bar. Too early for customers, but the door was unlocked, lights on, coffee brewing, business as usual. Except one thing, one chair, corner booth, Bumpy's table. The chair stayed pulled out, like someone had just stood up, like they were coming back, but nobody was sitting there. Nobody had sat there in 3 days. The chair just waited. Empty. Accusing. A question nobody wanted to answer. Charlie, the owner, wiped the bar. Same motion. Over and over, circular, repetitive. The wood was already clean, had been clean for an hour, but his hands needed something to do, something normal, something that didn't involve thinking about empty chairs and what they meant. A young kid walked in. 22, fresh suit, new money, Bronx accent. Thought he understood Harlem because he'd been here twice. Thought he was tough because nobody had tested him yet. Scanned the room, saw the empty table, saw the pulled-out chair. Walked over, started to sit. Charlie's voice cut across the room. Sharp. Urgent. Not that table. The kid stopped, half sitting, confused. Why not nobody's here? That's Bumpy's table. I don't see Bumpy. Exactly. You don't see him. Means you should be more careful. Not less. The kid laughed, nervous, trying to save face. He owns a chair now, even when he's not here. Old man in the corner spoke, 70 years old. Named Samuel. Been in Harlem since 1910. Survived every gang war, every territory fight, every shift in power. Survived by understanding rules that weren't written, by reading signals others missed. Boy, that chair's been empty 3 days. You know why? Bumpy's busy. Bumpy's making a point. That chair stays empty until he fills it, and everyone who sees it empty knows something's happening. Something big. Something that ain't finished yet. You sit in that chair, you're saying you don't understand. Don't respect. Don't know the rules. And not knowing the rules in Harlem. That's how you stop breathing. The kid stepped back, looked at the chair. Just wood. Just leather. Just furniture. But suddenly it felt dangerous. Radioactive, like touching it would contaminate him. Mark him. Make him part of whatever was happening that he didn't understand. He sat at a different table, far from the corner, far from the empty chair, far from whatever message was being broadcast in silence. Samuel nodded, sipped his coffee, went back to his newspaper. One less stupid kid getting himself killed today. The pattern repeated. All day. All week. People entered, saw the empty table, started toward it. Stopped. Turned away. Sat elsewhere, even when the bar was packed, even when every other seat was taken. That table stayed empty. That chair stayed pulled out. That space stayed sacred. Not because anyone guarded it, Not because anyone explained it, just because everyone understood. Some spaces belong to specific people, and when those people aren't there, the space waits. Patient. Inevitable. Until they return. By Friday, other things started disappearing. Small things. Subtle things. Things most people wouldn't notice, but everyone felt. Jimmy's policy bank closed. No explanation. Just locked doors, closed sign. Jimmy himself. Gone. Not dead, not arrested, just gone. Relocated, reassigned. Removed from the board like a chess piece that served its purpose. 3 restaurants stopped serving Gigante's crew. No announcement, no confrontation. Just when his men sat down, the owner would shake his head. Kitchens closed, private event, come back tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. Kitchen stayed closed. For them. Only them. 2 bookies who worked Gigante's corners disappeared. Not violently, their corners just stayed empty. Their phones stopped ringing. Their clients found new bookies. Smoother transition. Quieter. Like water flowing around rocks. No force needed. Just path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance meant avoiding anyone connected to the man who disrespected Bumpy Johnson. The Italians felt it. The pressure, the squeeze. Not violent. Not dramatic. Just space closing in. Money drying up. Territory shrinking. People avoiding them like they carried plague. Like touching them meant infection. Meant becoming part of something marked for removal. Gigante sat in his social club, counting losses. 18 men gone, 14 businesses closed, 6 neighborhoods refusing service, all in 1 week. No shots fired, no bodies found, no evidence of violence. Just absence. Void. The systematic removal of everything he'd built in Harlem. Erased, deleted, made invisible. His lieutenant spoke carefully. "Boss, we need to respond. Can't let him do this. Makes us look weak." Respond how he hasn't done anything. No violence, no threats, no confrontation. Just people choosing not to work with us anymore. You can't shoot choice, can't beat economics, can't threaten absence. So we do nothing. We leave. We take the loss. We admit Harlem costs more than it's worth. Or we stay and bleed. Slowly, quietly, permanently. Until there's nothing left except the memory of what we used to be. The lieutenant left. Unconvinced. But understanding was spreading. Through Gigante's crew. Through the Italian families. Through every organization watching Harlem transform without explosions. Without drama. Without any of the violence they expected. This was different. This was evolution. Harlem was teaching lesson without lectures, proving point without violence, establishing dominance without firing shots, just removing pieces, relocating elements, adjusting the board until only 1 player remained. Samuel watched from his corner, sipping coffee, reading papers, remembering the last time Harlem changed hands. 1932. Dutch Schultz versus Stephanie St. Clair. Bodies everywhere. Police everywhere, federal agents crawling through streets like ants. Everyone lost money, everyone lost people. Everyone lost except the ones who stayed neutral, stayed quiet, stayed invisible. This was better. Cleaner. No bodies meant no investigations. No violence meant no heat. No drama meant business continued. Money flowed, territory held. Power transferred without destruction, without collapse, without the chaos that usually accompanied regime change. But it was colder, more calculated, more terrifying in its precision. Because stopping bullets was possible. Stopping this impossible. How do you fight absence? How do you challenge space? How do you retaliate against people simply choosing not to work with you anymore? You couldn't. You just watched, waited, hoped you weren't next, hoped your chair didn't become the next empty symbol, Hoped your business didn't become the next closed door. Hoped your name didn't become the next one people stopped saying. That's power. Real power. Not violence, not threats. Just the systematic removal of everything that challenges you. So quietly. So thoroughly. So completely that by the time anyone realizes what happened, it's already over. Already permanent. Already the new normal that everyone accepts because fighting it seems impossible. The empty chair at Lennox Lounge became symbol. Reminder. Warning. Bumpy didn't need to sit there. Didn't need to guard it. Didn't need to explain it. The chair explained itself. By staying empty. By waiting. By existing as proof that some spaces belong to specific people. And challenging that ownership means joining the disappeared, the relocated, the erased. Fear doesn't come from what you see. It comes from what you imagine. And an empty chair imagines thousands of possibilities, thousands of reasons, thousands of consequences for not understanding the message being broadcast in silence. Saturday night, Bumpy finally returned. Walked into the Lennox Lounge, 10 p.m. Usual time, usual walk, usual calm. Sat in his chair, the chair that had waited 3 days, pulled it in. Ordered whiskey, 2 fingers, no ice. The room exhaled. Collective breath held for 72 hours, finally released. Normal resumed. Order restored. The empty chair was filled. The message was complete. Nobody asked where he'd been. Nobody asked what he'd done. Nobody needed to. The empty businesses, the missing people, the closed doors, the shifted territory. That was the answer. That was the explanation. That was the proof that Harlem had rules. And breaking them meant disappearing so completely that even your absence became lesson. Bumpy sipped his whiskey, looked around, met eyes, nodded. Silent acknowledgement, silent understanding. The war was over, not with violence, with space, with absence, with the systematic removal of everything that challenged structure. The most permanent fear is the fear you create for yourself, the fear that comes from imagination, from wondering, from seeing empty chairs and closed doors and missing people, and knowing you could be next. Knowing that crossing invisible lines means joining the invisible. That fear doesn't fade, doesn't need reinforcement, doesn't require reminders, it just exists, permanent, self-sustaining, growing stronger every time someone notices empty space and remembers why it's empty. Cold, calculated, absolute. Marcus Garvey Park. Sunday afternoon, March 15th. Chess tables. Old men playing. Younger men watching. Learning. Studying moves that applied to more than boards, more than games, more than 64 squares of black and white. Bumpy sat across from Frank Costello, Prime Minister of the underworld, most powerful Italian in New York, the man who could start wars with phone calls, end careers with nods, reshape entire boroughs with whispered suggestions. They didn't speak, just played. Moving pieces, capturing, sacrificing, building positions that looked innocent but carried weight. Threat. Promise. Warning. Everything negotiations required but couldn't say directly. Crowd walked past. Families, children, tourists. They saw 2 old men playing chess. Didn't see the contract being written, the treaty being negotiated, the future being decided one move at a time. No lawyers, no paperwork, no witnesses except wooden pieces and minds that remembered every word never spoken. Costello moved his knight. Aggressive position, threatening Bumpy's queen. Gigante wants peace. Bumpy studied the board, moved his bishop. Defensive, protecting, creating counter-threat. Peace costs. What's the price? Harlem, complete, total. No interference, no operations, no claims, no future plays. He walks away, never comes back, never sends people, never tests borders. Complete surrender, disguised as mutual respect. Costello smiled, thin. You're asking for unconditional victory. I'm offering him survival. He tested my wife, lost 18 men, lost 14 operations, lost 6 neighborhoods. He can lose more, or he can accept that Harlem is closed, permanently. The price of entry is higher than anyone can pay. The return on investment is negative. The cost-benefit analysis says walk away. Costello captured Bumpy's pawn. Small victory, meaningless, and what do we get? The families, the commission. We just give you Harlem, let you operate independently, no cut, no oversight, no partnership. Bumpy captured Costello's night. Bigger victory. More meaningful. You get peace, you get stable borders, you get a neighbor who doesn't expand, doesn't challenge, doesn't threaten your operations. I keep Harlem. You keep everything else. Nobody bleeds, nobody loses money. Nobody brings federal attention. Clean. Simple. Profitable for everyone. Except Gigante. Gigante pays for testing what shouldn't be tested. For assuming weakness exists where none does. For thinking my wife was vulnerability instead of fortress. He pays. Everyone else profits. That's fair trade. Costello leaned back, studying Bumpy more than the board. You understand this makes you equal. To us. To the commission. To families with 50 times your soldiers. You're claiming sovereignty based on defending a woman's honor. I'm claiming sovereignty based on proving that certain territories cost more than they're worth. That certain borders are enforced absolutely. That certain rules exist beyond negotiation. Honor is just the trigger. Structure is the weapon. And structure, when properly maintained, is more powerful than numbers, more permanent than soldiers, more absolute than any force you can field. Silence. Chess pieces waiting, Costello thinking, calculating, running scenarios. War meant losses, lots of them. Harlem was dense, complicated, defendable. Taking it would cost hundreds of soldiers, millions of dollars, years of fighting, federal attention, media coverage, everything the commission avoided. Or, accept Bumpy's terms, let Harlem be independent, sovereign territory. One neighborhood in exchange for peace everywhere else. One man's pride traded for everyone else's profits. Mathematics made the choice easy. Costello moved his queen, retreating. The commission accepts. Harlem is yours, independently operated. We take no cut. Impose no oversight. In exchange, you stay contained. Don't expand. Don't challenge. Don't create problems that become our problems. Deal. Bumpy moved his rook. Checkmate in 3 moves. Both men saw it. Neither said it. Deal. They shook hands. Brief. Firm. Contract signed without paper. Treaty ratified without witnesses. Peace achieved without surrender. Just mutual understanding that profits exceeded costs. That cooperation beat conflict. That certain men earned respect through demonstration rather than negotiation. Costello stood, buttoned his coat. One more thing. Word is you let a witness live. Jenny Rodriguez. Saw your people working, talked to friends, could have destroyed everything. But you let her walk. Why? Bumpy reset the board, preparing for the next game, next negotiation, next test. Because killing everyone who sees something makes you tyrant, makes you monster, makes you the thing people fight against. Structure requires legitimacy. Legitimacy requires restraint. I could have killed her. Would have been easier, cleaner. But it would have proven I'm just violence, just fear, just death. And if that's all I am, then Harlem is just territory, not home, not sanctuary, not worth protecting. Costello nodded, understanding, respecting. You're more dangerous than I thought. Most men would have killed her. You understood killing her would have cost more than it saved. That's rare. That's valuable. That's why this deal works. Because you understand power isn't just force. It's knowing when not to use force. He left, walking across the park, disappearing into Sunday crowds, just another old man. Another citizen. Another player in games that never ended. Only paused between moves. Bumpy sat alone. Victory complete. Harlem secured. Peace achieved. Independence recognized by the most powerful criminal organization in America. Everything he'd fought for. Everything Willie died for. Everything that made Charleston matter. Made the journey north matter. Made the violence matter. But Mamie appeared. Sat down. Didn't speak. Just sat. Presence enough. Her being there meant she knew, understood, saw through the victory to the cost underneath. "You made a deal," she said quietly. "I secured Harlem. You made a deal with people who bring poison, who destroy communities, who make money turning people into addicts, and you gave them permission, not in Harlem, not yet. But the door is open, the precedent is set, the partnership exists. And partnerships evolve." Bumpy said nothing, because she was right. The deal with Costello secured independence, but independence came with connections. Connections came with obligations. Obligations came with compromises, and compromises over time became corruption, became the thing you swore you'd never allow, became the poison that killed from inside. Slowly. Quietly. Permanently. "There's no empire without compromise," Bumpy finally said. "No territory without partnerships. No survival without dealing with devils. I chose the deal that keeps Harlem independent, keeps our people safe, keeps the structure intact. The price is knowing that independence means cooperation. Cooperation means exposure. Exposure means eventual infection. And when the infection spreads, when the heroin they push in Brownsville reaches Harlem, when our kids start dying from their product, when the money we made from numbers gets replaced by money from addiction, what then? Then we fight, again, differently. But for now, we're alive. We're independent. We're protected. That's worth the compromise, worth the risk. Worth knowing that perfect solutions don't exist. Only least bad options. And this was the least bad option available. Mamie stood, adjusted her coat. "You won today, but winning sometimes means losing tomorrow. Remember that when the chickens come home, when the deals become debts, when the partnerships become prisons." She walked away, leaving Bumpy alone with his chessboard, with his victory, with his deal, with the knowledge that every triumph carries cost, every peace requires compromise, every empire is built on foundations that eventually crack, eventually crumble, eventually demand payment in blood, in souls, in everything you swore you'd never sacrifice. No empire is held by victories. It's held by compromises you hate, by deals that make you sick, by partnerships with people you'd destroy if you could afford the war. But you can't afford the war, so you make the deal, accept the terms, shake hands with devils, and pretend that somehow, some way, someday. The bill won't come due, but it always does, always has, always will. Bumpy reset the board, alone, preparing for games that never ended, deals that never stopped evolving, compromises that never stopped demanding more territory, more cooperation, more of your soul, until nothing remains except the structure, the empire, the thing you built that now owns you more than you own it. Cold, calculated, inevitable. July 7th, 1968. Wells Restaurant, 7th Avenue, 2 a.m. Bumpy Johnson sat alone, corner booth, back to wall, old habits, old instincts, old paranoia that kept him breathing for 62 years. Coffee, black, growing cold. He didn't drink it, just held the cup. Warmth against palms, comfort, routine. The things that mattered when everything else was chaos. Waitress named Dorothy had worked here 17 years. Knew Bumpy before he was legend, when he was just customer, regular, the man who tipped well, spoke kindly, treated her like human instead of servant. She refilled his coffee without asking. He nodded thanks without speaking. Transaction complete. Understanding shared. Young kid sat 3 tables away. 25. Name was Frank Lucas. Wanted Bumpy's throne. Wanted his territory. Wanted his power. Thought power was thing you took. Thing you claimed. Thing you grabbed when the holder got weak. Old. Slow. He was wrong. But he was young. Young men are always wrong about power. Always think it's physical, visible, tangible. Don't understand it's invisible, structural, systemic, built over decades through decisions, demonstrations. Proof that certain rules hold regardless of who enforces them. Bumpy looked at him. Brief glance, recognition, dismissal. Lucas tensed. Ready. Waiting. Thinking confrontation was coming. Violence was starting. The moment where old king fights young challenger. Where nature takes its course. Where evolution happens through bloodshed. Nothing happened. Bumpy looked away. Back to his coffee. Lucas didn't matter. Would matter eventually. When Bumpy was gone. When the throne was empty. When the crown needed new head. But not tonight. Tonight was just coffee. Just routine. Just another 2 a.m. in a city that never stopped moving. Never stopped changing. Never stopped demanding payment from everyone who tried to control it. Bumpy's chest tightened. Small pressure, growing, spreading. Heart doing things hearts shouldn't do. Slowing, skipping, forgetting rhythm. He set the cup down. Careful. Precise. Didn't want Dorothy cleaning up broken ceramic. Didn't want final memory to be mess. Chaos. Everything he'd spent 62 years fighting against. He stood. Slow. Steady. Walked toward the door. Made it 5 steps. The pressure became pain. Pain became fire. Fire became everything. His vision narrowed. Tunneled. Went dark at edges. He fell. Clean. Controlled even in dying. Didn't flail. Didn't grab. Didn't make scene. Just stopped. Heart stopped beating. Lungs stopped breathing. Bumpy Johnson stopped being alive and became history, legend, story. The thing people would argue about for decades. Debate. Mythologize. Simplify. Sanitize. Until nothing remained except the parts that fit narratives, that sold papers, that made sense to people who'd never understood Harlem. Never understood power. Never understood that some men build structures that outlast bodies. Dorothy screamed, called ambulance, but she knew. Everyone knew. You don't survive that fall, that stillness, that absolute silence that comes when life leaves body and only meat remains. Just matter, just elements, just carbon and water and minerals that would decay. Return to Earth. Become something else. Someone else. Eventually, Lucas watched from his table, didn't move, didn't help, didn't do anything except witness. The moment. The transition. The old king dying in a restaurant. Alone. Quiet. Without drama. Without ceremony. Without anything except coffee cup and waitress and young man waiting to claim throne that was never his to claim. Mamie arrived 20 minutes later. Police had called. Told her Bumpy collapsed. Told her he was gone. Told her nothing she didn't already know. She'd felt it. Somehow. Somewhere. The way you feel earthquakes before they hit. Pressure change. Atmosphere shift. World reorganizing itself around absence, around void, around space where person used to be. She stood over his body. Didn't cry. Didn't break. Just looked. Studying, memorizing. This was the last time, last chance to see him as thing rather than memory. Last opportunity to be close to what was instead of what would become. History, legend, story. The thing other people owned. Controlled, interpreted, made into whatever they needed him to be. He was supposed to die in bed, she said to no one, everyone. Surrounded by family, by friends, by people who mattered. Not here, not alone. Not like this. Dorothy spoke carefully. He wasn't alone, Mrs. Johnson. I was here. I saw him. He wasn't scared, wasn't struggling, just stopped. Like he decided it was time, like he chose this, the way he chose everything else. Mamie nodded. Understanding. Bumpy would have wanted this. Restaurant, 2 a.m. Coffee going cold. No drama, no spectacle, no final words, no last stands. Just life continuing until it didn't. Clean. Simple. The way executions were clean. The way power was clean. The way everything he built was supposed to function, efficiently, quietly, without unnecessary noise. The funeral was Tuesday. Abyssinian Baptist Church. Thousands attended. Every family in New York sent representatives. Every player, every boss, every person who'd negotiated with him, fought him, feared him, respected him. They came, paid respects, acknowledged that something had changed, ended, would never return. Frank Costello spoke. Brief. Honest. Bumpy Johnson was the only black man the commission ever recognized as equal. Not because we were generous, because he proved it, demanded it, made ignoring him more expensive than accepting him. He built something that will outlast all of us, not through violence, through consistency, through proving that certain rules hold, certain structures last. Certain men can't be replaced because they built things that don't require them anymore. Mamie didn't speak, didn't eulogize, didn't explain. Just sat. Front row, black dress, pearls, composed, carrying grief privately. The way Bumpy carried everything. Internally, controlled. Never showing weakness because weakness invited challenge, invited testing, invited the thing they'd both fought their entire lives. The assumption that black folks couldn't build, couldn't maintain, couldn't create structures that lasted beyond individual lives. They buried him at Woodlawn Cemetery. Simple headstone, name, dates, no epitaph, no explanation, no summary of life that couldn't be summarized. Just existence, proof he was real. Walked Earth, made choices, built things, destroyed things, loved things, hated things, lived like everyone lives, died like everyone dies. Eventually. Inevitably, regardless of power, regardless of legend, regardless of everything except biology, mortality, time. Frank Lucas claimed the throne, thought it was his, thought Bumpy's death meant Bumpy's power transferred. Wrong. Power doesn't transfer, it's earned, built, proven. Lucas would learn that. Hard way, expensive way. By losing everything, getting arrested, spending decades in prison, becoming cautionary tale instead of success story. Because Bumpy's rules didn't die with Bumpy. They stayed. Held. Remained enforced by people who understood structure mattered more than individuals. Who understood that the system Bumpy built worked because it was system, not personality, not charisma, not force of will, but actual structure, actual rules, actual boundaries that held regardless of who enforced them. Harlem changed after 1968. Drugs flooded in, heroin, cocaine, eventually, crack. The compromise Bumpy made with Costello came due. The bill arrived, paid in bodies, in addicts, in families destroyed, in communities hollowed out, in everything Bumpy feared when he made that deal in Marcus Garvey Park. Everything Mamie warned about. Everything that seemed distant then but was inevitable now. But the core held. The understanding that Harlem belonged to Harlem, that outside forces could push, could sell, could corrupt, but couldn't conquer, couldn't control, couldn't replace the structure Bumpy built with something weaker, something temporary, something that died when dealers died, when bosses got arrested, when operations got shut down. The rules stayed. Not perfectly, not permanently, but longer than anyone expected. Decades longer, generations longer, until people who never knew Bumpy still lived by principles he established. Still understood that certain lines existed, certain boundaries held, certain debts got paid, certain structures outlasted the men who built them. If you live somewhere silence saves lives, you choose silence. Or you choose action, knowing the price is permanent. Knowing that speaking costs, fighting costs, breaking rules costs, and costs compound, grow, multiply, until you're paying prices your grandchildren inherit. Until your choices become their burdens. Until history becomes inheritance nobody wanted but everyone carries. This story exists between criminal files and community memory, between what happened and what people remember happening, between truth and legend, between fact and mythology. What matters isn't the satisfaction, isn't the victory, isn't the happy ending nobody gets. What matters is understanding how power structures get built, how they're maintained, how they create consequences that outlast builders, that reshape communities, that make choices seem logical then that look monstrous now. Bumpy Johnson died in a restaurant, but the thing he built died slower, piece by piece, choice by choice, compromise by compromise, until nothing remained except stories, lessons, warnings, the things we tell ourselves about power, about control, about what it costs to build empires in places where empires weren't supposed to exist. Cold, calculated, permanent, even in death, especially in death, because death makes legends. And legends, unlike men, never die, never change, never compromise. They just exist, eternal, perfect, untouchable. The way Bumpy wanted Harlem to be, the way it almost was, for a while, before time, before drugs, before everything fell apart the way everything eventually does, but for a moment, for decades, for one man's lifetime. Harlem had rules, had structure, had someone who proved that power isn't about force. It's about building things that don't need force, that maintain themselves, that outlast builders. That's the legacy. Not violence, not bodies, not locked rooms, but proof, evidence, demonstration that certain people in certain places can build certain things. And those things once built become permanent, inevitable, the way gravity is permanent, the way death is inevitable, cold, calculated, eternal. Stories like this don't exist anywhere else. Subscribe now. We dig where others won't. Tomorrow, 7 men. 1 room. No escape. The massacre that made an entire city go silent. History tried to bury it. We're bringing it back. Same time, different blood, same cold truth. See you tomorrow.